As veteran minicamp approaches, let's take a look at the depth chart as it stands for the Chicago Bears in 2025.
Huddle Up! What's up, Palace Huddlers? As always, I'm Rob Schwartz with Bear Goggles On. Tonight with me is Bob Weiss and Justin Onayemi. We got a good episode for you tonight. We are going to look at the offensive side of the ball and kind of just give a little bit of a comparison to maybe where the rooms have changed between last year, this year. Talk about maybe a few guys we want to see, either rise up or fall down, or maybe even get cut. I don't know about that one. Well,
a little early for that.
Ryan Bates, anybody?
Exactly. Bob read my mind. Bob read my mind. But before we do, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button. And then hit the comment section. Again, we like to continue this conversation, keep everything going. This is also going to be the first episode of our next giveaway. Okay? Here is the rules. There's going to be 3 of them. Okay? It's a 3-part episode. It will give you an opportunity to enter 3 times. This is similar to the one that we ran during the lead into the NFL draft. But all you have to do is be a subscriber. Go to the comment section, type in Huddle Up. That's it. You get an entry, okay? Then after our 3rd one, we'll go ahead and run a drawing, see who wins, and we will send out this photo to whoever that winner may be.
That easy.
It's that easy. It's, I don't know, easier than playing the actual lottery.
Just as
better chances of winning.
Definitely better chances.
Our subscriber number goes way up, but
although probably not as life altering, but
it's a really nice picture.
It is one of a kind. Like I said, it was a sideline photographer, so it's not something that you can just find on the shelf. All right, let's dive in. If you guys got nothing else to lead into,
no, I want to dive in on quarterbacks.
Yeah.
All right. Quarterback room. Obviously, Caleb Williams at the top. No difference this year compared to last year. Tyson Bagent was quarterback 2 last year. Is he going to maintain that position going into 2025? I guess time will tell. The big difference, though, this year, Case Keenum is on the roster. Will he stick around? Veteran presence. Maybe he's the type of guy who can teach Caleb Williams how to watch film.
So, hey, I don't know if you guys remember this. I don't know if you remember this, but as soon as the Bears drafted Caleb Williams, the first thing I said was, I wonder if they're going to sign Ryan Tannehill. Like, I really thought they were going to sign a veteran to be kind of a mentor for him, and they didn't go that route. And, he played well. He played fine. It was a train wreck of a season. I'm not saying signing Ryan Tannehill would have changed that, but it was kind of surprising to me that they didn't have that veteran in the room. And so I really like the Case Keenum pickup. He's not a threat to take over the position. He's there to lend his many, many years of experience to that room. And I think it can only be a positive.
Yeah, I mean, I think the veteran quarterback thing is way overrated. I think Caleb Williams would have benefited way more from competent coaching as opposed to having a veteran quarterback in the room. And to be honest, maybe a little conspiracy theorist, I think maybe part of the reason they didn't want a veteran quarterback in the room is constantly undermining the coaching that was going on, maybe. Like, they'll listen to Eberflus, he doesn't know what's going on kind of stuff. Now, that's total retrospect nonsense. I mean, they did bring, don't forget, they did bring Rippon in, who's, might not have had a lot of experience on the field, but he had been in the league for 5-6 years. He'd been in 3 or 4 different systems, learning systems, things like that. So there was some of that going on. But when it comes down to it, now this isn't fully a roster projection episode, but I really don't think Case Keenum is a real threat to be the backup quarterback here in Chicago this year. I think he's going to be great for the camp, great for implementing an offense, all that kind of stuff. But I'm really not too worried about Tyson Bagent not being the backup quarterback this year.
Yeah, I pretty much 100% agree with you on that. It's interesting you say that because it's exactly what happened with Matt Nagy, right? When they had, Nick Foles and Andy Dalton, right? Like, I can just remember Andy Dalton on the sideline, like looking at Matt Nagy, like, this can't happen. Like, You're never going to make that play work, like that type of situation. So 100%. Maybe that is the reason why. Plus, it might have been a little bit of meddling. We kind of hinted. We talked about that, I think, after the show last week, off air, off camera. But like maybe Ryan Poles was trying to get Matt Eberflus fired and bring in Ben Johnson this season.
Well, I mean, I guess if you think that a veteran can undermine the coach, that shows the value right there that a veteran has. So I feel like you can't be both those things. But either way, I think in the process of implementing this offense, learning this offense, to have somebody who's been there, done that, I don't think it can hurt. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it hurt. I'm just saying my point is if Caleb Williams make a massive jump this year, one, it'll be natural progression of a second-year quarterback, and two, it will be Ben Johnson and the rest of the offensive coaching support staff and not Case Keenum.
So one thing to note, and I don't know if it was just the way that I didn't see a report on this, but I saw today on social media that left foot forward for Caleb Williams instead of right foot, like natural. And we've gone down that path before with Justin Fields. I'm hoping that this coaching staff is competent enough to help transition that. And I'll be honest, and I'm not a quarterback, but I am right-handed. And when I just play, backyard ball with my kids, like I do put my left foot forward. It's more natural for me. So I'm kind of surprised that they don't naturally just do it that way. But I don't know, I guess to each their own.
Yeah, they got thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of reps under their belt. So whatever they're kind of comfortable with, I'm sure that's just what they stick with. But I mean, I will say it's interesting. I hadn't heard that yet, but I do think it's interesting that these things keep coming out. Ben Johnson said, we're not going to just do what we did in Detroit here. We're going to take what we do well here and then just implement, what go around that. And like something as fundamental and basic as that seems like that's just what Caleb Williams does, but they're going to go left foot forward. And like, he's always been comfortable out of the shotgun, but he's saying, no, we're going to go under center. So there's just some of these things that I'm sure we'll get to an episode later on this summer about, what we're expecting out of Ben Johnson. But there's some of these things that keep popping up that I'm just like, well, what is it? Is it going to be what the Bears do well, or is it what you want to do? So we'll just find out.
I also feel like he talked about tearing it all the way down to the studs and building it back up. So, I mean, footwork, getting under center, that is going to matter because that kind of stuff was not emphasized last year. You can tell, and it came out that it was not emphasized. So,
well, here's the thing. Like it says, history is on the horizon because Caleb Williams is going to break that 4,000-yard mark predicted right now. We've said it actually before. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
I agree. I think, that touchdown record, maybe he's got a possibility. I mean, we'll see. But certainly I think 4,000 yards is a very reasonable expectation.
All right, well, let's move on to the position everyone thought needed to be drafted higher in the 2025 NFL draft, and that's the running back position. Is DeAndre Swift good enough to be that guy? Because they really didn't address the position at all. There are still rumors out there that Nick Chubb could be the guy. I don't personally think that that's going to be an option. They brought in Kyle Monangai in the 7th round. We talked about him. He had stats in college that were pretty similar to David Montgomery, even though they're not, in my opinion, the same style of running back, or I should say he doesn't have the skill set as David Montgomery has. But yeah, other than that, there's really not a big change here. Again, we didn't see a big change at quarterbacks. We're not seeing a big change here at running backs. So, Justin, I'll start with you. Like, what do you think of the running back room this year versus what we saw last year?
All right. Well, first of all, I just want to ask you a question. When you said Nick Chubb being the guy, are you implying that if they sign him, it's to have him be like a number one workhorse type back?
No, I'm saying like be the guy as like an addition, and I don't think
he would
he's
be a
going to
compliment to DeAndre Swift, and in that role, maybe that is something to pursue. But DeAndre Swift kind of reminds me a little bit of Braxton Jones in the sense that people are acting as if they are scrubs that just need to be run off the depth chart, and it's like DeAndre Swift has some things that are concerning about his game, but he still had over 1,300 total all-purpose yards last year, and for a stretch between like weeks 4 through 7 was probably the best player on the offense. he had an awful start to the season. And I mean, I remember at the time thinking, well, I hope these are his 3 worst games. And probably they were. It was an awful, awful start. But when you know what you're asking him to do, he's not an in between the tackle, grind it out, 2-3 yards every single carry kind of guy. That needs to be figured out. And maybe that's Monangai. Maybe it's Roshan. And I just think a better offensive line, a better scheme, those things we keep kind of saying should help Caleb Johnson. But why wouldn't it also help DeAndre Swift? So he wasn't horrible, first of all. And I do think there have been some improvements overall to the offense that should make him as effective, if not better, than what he was last year.
Yeah, I mean, I like DeAndre Swift too. I mean, the guy has proven in multiple stops in his NFL career that he can create explosive plays. And he did it for the Bears last year. He did it in Philadelphia. He did it in Detroit. Like, he can be explosive, and that is a rare trait that you can't find anywhere. So, he needs to have a role in this offense. Now, is he good enough to be the every down back? Like, no. We see what happens when you try to run him on early downs. This big contact balance thing he just does not have. He goes down almost before he's touched the first time. It seems like he's going around the edge. He's like, oh, he's going to get 5-6 yards, right? No, 2.5. Okay. All right, great. All right. So that has to be improved, but we can't have this total, if you're not first, you're last mentality with it. Like, just because he's not Saquon Barkley doesn't mean he can't contribute to an NFL team. He absolutely can. Now, to the compliment to that, who is going to take those carries? Roshan can be okay. Monangai, we don't really know. I have some faith that he's not going to be terrible, but how good is he going to be? We don't know. And then, I've said before, I'd like to have one more guy come into this room. If the guy for that is Chubb, fine, great, but let's not have unreal expectation that he's going to carry the ball 280 times for 1,300 yards. It's not going to happen. But, can he give you 10 to 12 carries a game for 50 yards? Maybe. And I think that's just a piece that's still missing from this roster, missing from this running back room.
All right. Before we move on to wide receivers, I do want to point out one big drastic change, and I think it's going to be for the positive, and that's Eric Bieniemy, right? We've already seen a lot of clips of him and working the running backs on social media. So, yeah, I think he's going to be that hard-nosed, like, no nonsense, let's go get it type guy. And we're seeing that, and it's like, look, you make that catch, get upfield. Get that catch, get upfield. And I will say Kyle Monangai had the worst catch on that clip. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. We can't share it here. Yes, definitely use the body. But they all got upfield, so that was the main point of that whole entire drill.
Wait, one more thing. One of the stars of Hard Knocks. Unfortunately, he had a sad ending to his story. But Ian Wheeler, did I say his name correctly?
Wheeler,
all of a sudden, I drew a blank there. But I was very excited to see the potential of what he could be. Now, again, to put like your stock in him taking this huge leap from an undrafted free agent coming off an ACL injury to like somebody you're depending on seems crazy right now. But let's see how that story plays out as well. So who knows? But
if any position's going to be able to do it, I feel like running back, right? There's a lot of UDFA and late round running backs who just tend to just show up and be good. So it's definitely a possibility.
One guy could be Pacheco.
There you go. All right, let's move on to the wide receivers. Look, a big change here, right? You have no oh gosh, I keep forgetting Keenan Allen. I don't know why I just keep forgetting his name.
Very forgettable season.
Very forgettable season. Outside of the leadership and the off the field mentorship that I felt like he did bring to the table with Caleb Williams. But here's a quick rundown. So DJ Moore still here, Rome Odunze still here, Keenan Allen gone, Tyler Scott still here, Velus Jones, thank you, gone.
Tyler Scott?
Yeah. You don't think Tyler Scott's going to be here anymore?
Well, I'm just saying, like, to even mention him, like
I'm just quickly running through. Okay. Just quickly running through who's not here and not here. DeAndre Carter no longer here. Nasimba Webster, I don't believe is still on the roster. I'll tell you in a second. The rest of these guys not even worth talking about. So again, the big change. Luther Burden, obviously drafted in the second round, in my opinion. I think in both of your opinion, should have been a first-round pick, so I love that. Olamide Olamide, thank you. Zacchaeus is another one. Devin Duvernay, which is mostly a return guy, but again, a big impact because it could potentially push Tyler Scott further down the depth chart. He was your kick returner last year. Miles Boykin, another guy who had some potential, never really lived up to it, but I think is still better than some of the six wide receiver 6 and 7s that we saw on this roster last year. So I definitely, personally, before we get to how you guys think that this was an upgrade, even though you did get rid of Keenan Allen, who is probably a fringe Hall of Famer, maybe not quite going to get there, but like a guy who's in that conversation, right? I still think this is an upgrade. I don't know. Bob, what do you think?
I think it's absolutely an upgrade. Obviously, your top 2 are the same, but your middle 3 are way better. And then your entire depth down to 6, 7 are way better. Tyler Scott was your 4 maybe last year, and now he's your 6, maybe 7, maybe not even on the roster, right? So there's definitely some improved depth. I've always liked Olamide. Sorry, I know how to say it. I just butchered it. Let's just say Zacchaeus. When he was in Atlanta, I thought it was just every time you watch the Atlanta Falcons play, he'd touch the ball and make a crazy play happen. So I've always liked him. And then Burden, we talked about Burden being my favorite guy in the draft, or my favorite pick that we had in the draft. So I'm excited about this wide receiver room. I'm excited about the ceiling that Rome Odunze still has. I mean, last year people want to say he had like a down rookie year or whatever, and he had 700 yards and 3 touchdowns, which I get that that's not an all-pro receiver, but when we did our preseason predictions, like that's exactly what we had him at. Like that's just what's supposed to happen with a rookie wide receiver, right? I mean, it's not even like Neighbors had some really nice stretches, but his total numbers weren't spectacular. Like it's rare to just come out and get 1,300 yards as a rookie. So I'm so excited about the ceiling that Rome Odunze has. And we know wide receiver coach Antoine Randall L. said that Rome Odunze was his top receiver in the draft last year, right? So he's working with his favorite guy right now. And I don't know if he'll ever come out and say it, but I got a sense that Luther Burden was his favorite wide receiver in this draft. So he's got his 2 in the last 2 drafts that he's working with. So I'm really excited about this. Oh, and DJ Moore, maybe just wants to talk about
Well, I do want to talk about DJ Moore, but I want to go back to last year. It was very exciting to think, wow, the Bears have potential like big time quarterback and a big 3 wide receivers. The problem though was that Keenan Allen, it was more so what was on the back of his football card than what you were actually getting from him. His arrow was going down and is likely still going down. Whereas Odunze, like Bob just said, that was a rookie season. Now you go forward a year, you imagine Odunze's arrow is getting ready to go up. DJ Moore, just under 1,000 yards receiving last year. That's a down season for him. And it never really seemed like him and Caleb quite got a connection. As you mentioned, Rob, in a previous episode, although Keenan Allen's stats might not have popped off of the stat sheet, he did seem to develop some sort of trust with Caleb Williams. So I also feel Odunze at times showed that with Williams. Some very big plays where he was the target and made some very great catches that were contested. So all of that, and you add Burden, I think this room has the potential to be very, very good. And that's all without mentioning, which I keep mentioning it, and I have to keep mentioning it, you have hopefully a much better system that's going to be employed. So when you look at a guy like DJ Moore, his best asset to me is his run after catch ability. And that's what Ben Johnson really emphasizes is let's get quick, decisive decisions made by our quarterback and give our playmakers a chance to make plays after the catch. I think DJ Moore can thrive in a system like that. I think Luther Burden can thrive in a system like that. Really exciting. So again, I feel like they have a big 3, but this time the arrows are level or going up, and that's exciting.
I might be putting a lot of hype on the stud that they drafted in Luther Burden, but it wouldn't surprise me and this is the reason why I chose this for the graphic, is that by mid-season, he's actually becoming the wide receiver one in this offense, because I feel like he's going to fit the mold of what you saw. Again, Bob, you mentioned it. Like Ben Johnson doesn't want to just bring that offense down here. He wants to build what we do, what they have here up with what they can do well. But when I look at Luther Burden and I think of what he does well, and that's play out of the slot, and and the yards after catch, like Justin just said, and I just can see him taking over that role at some point in this season. If it's not this season, I think it definitely could be next. And here's the thing, to have two guys like, nothing against DJ Moore, but you have Luther Burden who could develop into that. And then you have Rome Odunze, who, like you guys both said, like the two top receivers that Antoine Randall L thought in this offense, like going forward, you have a 1 and a 1, like a 1A and a 1B. It's just amazing, because like, here's the thing, like I can see these guys being that way, where like you look at like, Jamar Chase as a 1A. I don't really see T Higgins as a 1B. To me, he's a 2. He's a good 2, a really good 2, but I don't see him as a 1B. I could see these guys being that. Maybe more like what you have in Minnesota with Addison and Justin Jefferson. And I don't know. The sky's the limit for this wide receiver group. And
yeah, I mean, as excited as just said we are about Odunze and Burden, like DJ Moore could still be the best of the three. Right?
100%.
It's just really exciting group. Really exciting group.
All right. Well, let's move on to another pass catching group.
It was so hard for me not to mention them, by the way, when we were just wide receivers.
Yeah. So are we kicking Kmet to the curb? Is Cole Kmet going to the curb? Obviously, he's on paper right now, your tight end 1, just as he was last year. They went and drafted Colston Loveland at number 10 in this draft. They brought in Durham Smythe out of Miami to be that tight end 3. Brought back Steven Carlson. Not really much of a. I mean, I think it's an upgrade, right? I mean, it's a huge upgrade, because I just think that Colston Loveland moves them up in that rankings there as far as 2025 versus 2024 currently. Justin, what do you think?
Well, I feel like it's kind of strange. And again, as Bears fans, myself, it's been decades as a Bears fan. And hopefully, a lot of people watching this show have been Bears fans for a long time. We don't even know what productive, high octane offense looks like. But it is so crazy to me that once you feel you have a weapon, your first instinct is, well, let's get rid of the other weapon that also plays that position. No, let's have multiple. I think you can easily see a situation where you have Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland thrive in this offense. And you want that. You want to make it hard on defenses to stop. Not 1, not 2. You have 2 tight ends to stop. We just said you have 3, 4 receivers you might need to stop. That is a good thing. So to me, it's not finding, Colston Loveland won't get opportunities because Kmet's there. I think they both can thrive in this offense. And if that happens, that's great for Caleb Williams. That's great for this team. I have no problem with that. I'm very excited to see what these tight ends can do. Like I said, I almost brought up Loveland in the last one because, he can play like a receiver for the most part. So you mentioned the slot. Mismatches all over the field, and you have the right coach and play caller to exploit defenses with these 2 tight ends and the receivers we just mentioned. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think Kmet's still going to play. I really do. I know, obviously, Kmet and Loveland are both tight ends, but it's strange to say they're both tight ends, but they play different positions, right? Kmet is that inline wide tight end, and Loveland is that move tight end, F tight end, right? So they can be on the field at the same time in a lot of different formations. They don't duplicate each other. The one thing that with Kmet that might kind of change is just the contract that he's got, right? And so, there still are only so many targets to go around, right? So if it just turns out that he ended up being the 5th or 6th option on this offense and he's got that contract and it's not a terrible contract, but that means another team might want to trade for Cole Kmet. That's where it might kind of work out, where it's just in everyone's best interest to move on from Kmet. But he's still a good player. He's still the same player, and I think that he can still make some plays in this offense.
Either way, they're going to have better production than Gerald Everett did last year.
I hope so.
All right, let's move on to the big men. All right. We're going to specifically just talk about the tackles, and we got the same old when it comes to the starters. O as in OL. You got, obviously, in our opinion, Braxton Jones at the starting left tackle spot, and you got Darnell Wright at the right tackle spot. Both last year and this year, you have Kyron Amagaji as what we would assume would be, the guy who could push to be that backup left tackle. But then they brought in Ozzie Trapillo as well, who we mentioned could be more of like a swing, someone who can compete both on the right and the left, kind of like your Matt Pryor type who can also play on the inside. And then, no Larry Borum anymore. So that's a big difference from what they had last year as well. So I don't know. I can't remember who I started off with last time, but we'll throw it to Bob this time. Do you think that this is an upgrade? Do you think they're at about the same spot?
I think overall they're better. The one little downgrade is the Braxton Jones injury. We don't exactly know how he's going to come back. But, I know I've said it a few times on the show, but I'll say it again. Braxton Jones is your starting left tackle until he proves that he can't. You want him to come back. You want him to be healthy. You want him to play really, really well, and you want him to leave next year on a free agent contract and get the comp pick. That's what you want. You want to fill in with Amagaji, who should be better this year, just a year more experience, a year healthier, and hopefully a year better coached. And then Ozzie Trapillo, who's just a very solid come in, let's call him a plug and play swing tackle out of college, right? So overall, I think the tackles are definitely upgraded.
Yeah, injuries are never a good thing, but in this case, the two players you have that are behind Braxton Jones, what they both most need right now is experience and opportunity. And so I think if you take your time letting Braxton Jones fully heal, and by that I mean hopefully, ramp up during training camp. I'm not talking like, the season begins and he's still trying to get there. That'll be a bad sign. But from what it sounds like, he's your week one starter. But in the meantime, you have a guy like Amagaji who he wasn't ready last year. He was thrown into a tough spot and he didn't look good. But as Bob just said, now he has more experience. In the offseason, he's going to get a lot of reps that he otherwise might not have gotten had Braxton Jones been healthy. So I do think it could end up being a bit of a blessing in disguise in the fact that both Amagaji and Trapillo will get opportunities. And if one of them just blows you away, then now you have the competition. But if not, hopefully they're getting valuable experience that will most likely matter. Because as Rob pointed out in a previous episode, Bears had 27 offensive line combinations last year?
27, yeah.
That's not good. That's way too many. But it does happen from time to time. So I like that those guys are going to get some experience, but hopefully Braxton Jones will be ready to go. And I'll just throw this in there. Darnell Wright should stay at right tackle. We hope that you can solve this without moving him. That's the ideal situation.
Completely agree. I have nothing else to add. All right. Now let's move to the inside, and they did a complete overhaul. Last year we had, going into training camp, it was actually going to be Ryan Bates at center. Coleman Shelton was his backup at the time. Then you had Tevin Jenkins at left guard. You had Nate Davis at right guard. You had Jatir Carter. You had Bill Murray. You had the fullback, Doug Kramer, in there as well. Now, this year, like I said, complete overhaul. You have a future Hall of Famer in Joe Thuney, right? Still has plenty of gas in the tank, in my opinion. And anyone who wants to talk, I don't know if we've said this, but anyone who wants to talk about how poorly he played in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl specifically, he got forced to play left tackle. He wasn't even playing inside. That's not his position. He's not a tackle.
Anyone
He's always been
real life examples of why it may be tough to play left tackle with short arms. Maybe there's an example right there.
Yeah, that, and you just, he didn't have the experience really at it either. So look, he's an all-pro Hall of Fame guard. As long as he can stay in that position, he's going to be fantastic. Stop worrying about what you saw against the Eagles, because it's not going to continuously happen. Then they got Jonah Jackson. I know, look, he was playing out of position in Los Angeles, and then there was like a back and forth and an injury and yada, yada, yada. I still think it's an upgrade over, like, if you're going to compare it to the Nate Davis part of this line, right? And then Drew Dahlman, who's probably at least a top 8 center in the NFL, right? Like, he's not a top 3. I wouldn't even say he's a top 5, but he's definitely a top 8. And if you have a top 10 center, that's fantastic. The Bears haven't had one in forever, it feels like. So, again, huge overhaul there. You still have Ryan Bates. I don't know why. You still have Doug Kramer. To be honest, I don't know why. They drafted Luke Newman in the 6th round. And they still have Bill Murray for comedic relief. So, Justin, what do you think? Are you happy that Bill Murray's still here? I know he was on our boards.
Of course. Well, am I the only one who thinks last year's was better? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Obviously, like, there's no doubt about it. This was a massive, massive upgrade of an area of the offense and of the team that really disappointed last year. I mean, as you were going through those names, I started to like almost have PTSD in a way. Nate Davis, that was just a disaster. Jenkins never could really stay healthy. Who is your center? We talked about it, it was a disaster. So to me, they have shored up that part of the line. This quarterback who's coming into year 2 was sacked 68 times last year. I mean, that could be damaging. You know what I mean? And so you don't want anything like that happening again this year. And I think they've taken the steps necessary to avoid that. Question though, Rob, who is the center that they also had? Stromberg or something?
Oh,
Ricky
yeah.
Stromberg.
Ricky Stromberg.
So
He's
I mean,
still
I'd like to see if he could
It's
earn.
bad.
I'd like to see if he can earn a backup position at center. But other than that, I mean, total improvement. Very excited to see how they play. Now they do have to learn to play as a unit, but they're veterans, and I think they can do that.
So I'm going a little contrarian here. Obviously, what they've done at the starting guards and center is a massive improvement, but I'm not going to call this like a complete overhaul. Like, this wasn't like a full-on tear-down renovation of everything. This was just like a really impressive facelift. This was a really nice, fancy coat of paint with some nice decorations, right? The foundation of this room is still just as bad as it was last year. It's super top-heavy. If one of these starters go out, your backup guards and center are still Ryan Bates, Doug Kramer, and Bill Murray. There is not enough in this room to get through a season. And so I'm just terrified. We know that Jonah Jackson's been injured almost every year of his career. He's not going to play every down. Joe Tooney's a stud, and Drew Dahlman's been injured in 2 of his 4 years of his career too. So this room needs more. That's why we're advocating for another lineman in the draft. I hope that there's still some veterans on their radar after they take a look at what they got in mini camp before training camp starts. But I still am not happy with this room despite the massive upgrade of those 3 starting positions.
That's completely fair. Top heavy can look great on paper, and then all it takes is one little whoosh, and things just completely change. So definitely think you're on point there, Bob. All right. This was a great show, great episode. I really appreciate it. My final thoughts real quick are, look, this is the first part of a 3-part episode. Please go to the comment section. Make sure you're subscribed. Type in Huddle Up. That's all you got to do to be entered into our free giveaway for this photo. This is going to be a fun off season. Have anything else you guys want to add?
No, I'm excited. Just keep watching the videos. Make sure you comment Huddle Up, getting that giveaway, and we're excited to keep moving through the rest of this off season.
I got nothing.
All right. Well, then next up will be we got special teams and we got the defense. So lots of fun. All right. Until next time, bear down, claws up.
Ready, break.